Alright, draft science type video. Yes, I have been working on this bulletin board kind of thing where I figure I'll do some of these topics and provide, well, do the text thing in some kind of way where I can do it in a way that's explained as individual subjects. And, I could do it on the website, and I probably will eventually. Just a way of dealing with the subjects. So the first one is SpaceTime, and I have in previous videos sort of pointed out that this is one of the fundamental mistakes, is to essentially take gravity out of physics, put in a separate dimension, and it just ruins the whole game. It just makes it all a separate mechanism, and it's not going to be applicable to the mechanisms we know, like fire and magnetism and electricity, all that stuff. There's just no bent space rationality observable in those mechanisms. So anyway, so I would say that space is nothing. That's the real definition of space. Now, if you want to have bent space as an argument for gravity, well, then call it something else. Bent ether, bent something, but calling it bent space is just cheating. The space is nothing. If you're going to put something in it, then it's not really space. It's just cheating language. I would argue that gravity is a something, something else. It's not nothing. It's a something force, a real force. All the forces are real. I think that would be one of the subjects. They're all made out of something. Alright, time is a function. It's not a dimension. You can't bend it or warp it or twist it or turn it. It's a function. And it's what happens in a universe where everything doesn't happen instantaneously. So as long as things can't happen instantaneously, yeah, you'll have time. Because that's the uninstantaneousness. So I think the way I'm going to put that is something like change forces force. I like that. To travel distance, and that takes time. So the force is the thing that takes time to go somewhere. And we know that gravity, light, magnetism all travel at the same speed. The speed of light. The speed of force. And that we just have, again, sort of messed it up by calling it the speed of light, when it's really the speed of force. And light's a force. It's not something different than gravity or magnetism. It's just a different form of the same thing. Okay. Alright, so the arguments against the bent space analogy. Now clearly bent space can be duplicated by something like Mach gravity, a particle gravity, or even in ether theory. If you do it the right way, you can make it fit. As long as you don't start doing the traveling and velocity experiments in empty space, you can duplicate the idea of a convergence, because that's all gravity is. It's a convergence. It's the opposite of a light bulb, essentially. Instead of the photons coming out, the gravity goes in and it pulls things with it. And so I would argue that this is one of the arguments against bent space. Is the idea of a reverse light bulb is a little bit silly. Now, the idea that the universe has a pressure and is out to get you isn't silly. But the idea of a reverse light bulb that is pulling the force in, not a good idea. And so that would be one of the arguments also, is that push versus pull. Push is really the only one that works, as an elemental or fundamental explanation. Push is the simple thing. Pull is the complicated thing. Good reason right there to stay away from this pull idea. So the external force is really the only reasonable way of understanding the creation of the convergence. why the stuff is going back into the light bulb. It's because it's being pushed into the light bulb. It's just so simple. So there's nothing, I'm willing to deal with people's suggested reading if I must. Clearly, you'll quickly lose reputation if you're just going to post bullshit link after bullshit link. But there is no hard evidence of anything called a bent space. There's hard evidence that gravity, the force, exists, but there's no evidence that space is bent, and there's no evidence that somehow the matter's obeying the bendedness and any of that stuff. There's no bent space equation. And time dilation is really just a velocity issue, so that goes into another category. That's just about moving things and what happens to the matter when you move it. And so that's a different subject. And you don't need, again, to bend time to create phenomenon related to velocity of matter. Matter's complex. You move it fast, it does different things. It's affected by it. And it's not really that you're moving it fast, it's that it catches the speed bug and it keeps on moving. Its wheels are turning. Anyway, so this is also related to the whole mechanism of the atomic structure. Again, if you get rid of bent space, you come up with a force that's pushing, then you can sort of understand that attraction may well just be the absence of repulsion. So if I brought two things together and there was something between them, it doesn't matter, a pin, but we'll say force, gravity, tons of some kind, and I push them together and neither one of them can absorb the pen, then the pen compresses and squishes and gets stays there. It gets compressed. And if you think of the pen having moving bits, ping pong balls inside of it, well, the ping pong balls bounce back and forth much faster, and that's the nature of repulsion. You're taking something that when it's spread out is a weak force because it's only ding, 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 ding. And as you bring them together, you're turning it into a ding, 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 ding. And it's just that simple. And that's the mechanism of attraction, is basically taking away repulsion. If there's nothing ding-dinging between them, then the outside that's ding-dinging pushes them together. So, yes, that's enough of it. I'll keep it simple. If I come up with something else, I'll add it text-wise, I suppose, or whatever, but, arguments for or against. I can't think of any arguments for. There's just nothing essential about bent space in terms of creating a solution to a problem that can't be solved with some other mechanism, even a magnetic mechanism or an electrical mechanism, or, there's lots of people playing with theories, and I would argue they all have some kind of flaw. And I would argue that I have solved a lot of those flaws for this idea of a material gravity, but I'm also arguing for material magnetism and a material photons. It's all material in the sense it's made out of a ton, a thing, a discrete bit. And yeah. So, but if somebody has an argument, why is bending space essential to solve the gravity problem when we don't have to bend space to solve the magnetism problem? And doing it to time, again, when time is so obviously just related to the fact that it takes time for forces to move and communicate influence. The only way something happens, as Newton would say, is because a force acted on it. And it takes time for a force to go from one place to another place and act. And where's the evidence proving that untrue? We'll get into spooky action, but of course all of those experiments are statistically based. They're not exactly what you'd call hard evidence. And I think you can find the flaw in all of them. if you're willing to be honest and look. So anyway, yeah, so that's enough. So I'll take on quantum mechanics in the next one, because it's not really what they make it out to be. There's no real magic in quantum mechanics. It's just accepting that there's variance in the potentialities for these very small products to do things. They can do things that we don't understand because we don't understand exactly how they work. So we turn that into a probability, but it doesn't mean it's a real probability. It just means that we don't know how they work, and therefore we're just taking everything they do and calling it one thing and then saying it has this variance. It's just kind of lazy not to just fess up and say we don't know why. Instead to say why is unknowable. No need to do that. No need to say why is unknowable. No need to do that. Alright, anyway. So, till the next time. And such.